So the first one is on personal income tax. What is the problem with the personal income tax we have currently, and what is it that we have in the new laws? So the current income tax regime we have in Nigeria is regressive because it's placing more burden on the low income earners than high income earners. And this is not ideal. In many of our countries abroad where we live and work, like the UK, for example, I think up to £13,000 is tax-free. So every country has that threshold where they try to protect their most vulnerable people. It used to be like that in Nigeria, but a long time ago. So the new reform laws has now taken a very practical approach to increase that exemption threshold significantly, and then to reduce the tax on the middle income earners. And then, like I said, increase it for high income earners. But we have another major problem within the tax system in Nigeria that we needed to address. And that is a question around formalization. In many countries, including where many of us live abroad, what you find consistently is that the top rate for personal income tax is always higher than the rate for corporate tax, so that people are encouraged to do business using corporate arrangements so they can pay lower taxes than if they're operating like informal sector, they'll pay higher taxes. In Nigeria, is the direct opposite. This is one of the reasons why we have this large informal sector in Nigeria, and they're not formalizing. They won't formalize because it doesn't make sense to formalize. If you are informal and you even want to pay all your taxes, you don't get to 20% in Nigeria. The moment you register with CAC, a company to do your business, that rate goes to over 40%. So we needed to address that problem. And so we have two proposals to address it. One is reduce the corporate tax rate to 25%, and then increase the top rate for high income earners to 25%. At least you have something that is more like of a parity as work in progress. At some point, I personally hope that Nigeria will do a further reform, maybe another 5 years, I don't know, where you further adjust that rate so it can be similar to what you have in developed countries, so that the rate for companies is much lower than the top rate for individuals. Now, the other thing that is important here on the personal income tax is to do with rules around residency. So I saw someone, because they shared a video with me, obviously not a tax expert, who came up and said, Tinubu's government from January next year will make you pay tax whether you live in Nigeria or abroad. And it went viral again. And it turns out, when I watched the video, the guy was confused in terms of what he was saying. So generally around the world, apart from the US, if you have US citizenship or permanent residence, if you like, go to the moon and spend the whole year there, your obligation to the US government for taxes would continue. So that system of America is extreme. We are not doing that in Nigeria. So for us in Nigeria, if you are physically here in Nigeria for more than 183 days in a year, that means in 1 year, you spent more time in Nigeria than anywhere else. And this is not a peculiar rule to Nigeria. This is international standard. Then Nigeria will consider you as tax resident in Nigeria. What does that mean? It means the country where you are tax resident has the first and priority right of taxation to collect your income tax. Should you become liable to tax in any other country, that other country is the one to give you tax credit. So this information is very important. So for most of our people abroad, living abroad, it's not very likely that you spend more time in Nigeria in a year and still consider yourself as living abroad.